Breaking news, the House voted about an hour ago to impeach Attorney General Ken Paxton. We are waiting on the governor to appoint an interim in that position as we start looking ahead at a Senate trial. The Attorney General faces 20 accusations from a House committee ranging from bribery to retaliation. It all stems from an investigation that started after Paxton proposed using state funds to settle a $3.3 million whistleblower lawsuit. Our Capitol correspondent Ryan Chandler is at the state Capitol right now. Ryan, tell us what is next in this impeachment process.
Well, Mike, first, this is an immediately consequential decision. Unlike in Washington, D.C., where impeachment may be more symbolic, this has practical implications right now. Ken Paxton will be removed from office, relieved of his official powers and duties while that trial is pending in the Senate. That's what happens now. The articles of impeachment will be presented to the Senate, and the senators will actually act as a jury, just as any other trial would. They will get to hear evidence from the Attorney General from the start. Attorney General Paxton has said that these accusations could be, quote, easily disproven, but to this day, nobody has seen any of that exculpatory evidence. So we look forward to the senators weighing that evidence and deciding ultimately whether they will convict and permanently remove the Attorney General from office.
And Ryan, we know this debate took place for about almost 4 hours with both sides having their say. What are you hearing now from lawmakers there about the impeachment?
Well, after this vote, I think lawmakers are satisfied, but nobody is really surprised. We saw wide margins of both Republicans and Democrats vote to convict. The vote was 121 to 23, with more than 70% of Republicans voting. The 23 members who opposed the impeachment were all Republicans, and they worried not so much about the Attorney General's guilt or innocence, but about the process. This did move very quickly, and they worry that individual members of the legislature were not able to see direct evidence. Still, though, the vote sailed through easily tonight.
Yeah, not even a close vote. You're right. And Ryan, Representative Charlie Guerin made a statement on the House floor about Paxton contacting House members before the vote. What claims did he make?
That's right. That was shocking new information we learned today. Multiple representatives accused the Attorney General of calling House members and threatening political consequences if they vote to impeach him. We were also hearing some reports that that may have been happening on the Senate side as well. So we saw one state representative not too long ago, Democratic State Representative Eddie Morales. He said that he's going to ask the House to update the charges against him to include intimidation of House members and Senate jury tampering. Of course, we would expect the top law enforcement official in Texas to be keeping more of a distance on this as it goes to the Senate.
And I would like to point out that several members of this House, while on the floor of this House doing the state business, received telephone calls from General Paxton personally, threatening them with political consequences in their next election.
We haven't heard from any members personally who have said the Attorney General did call them. We'll work to track that down, but this is still shaping out. We expect the Senate may take this up, but not for a while. We're hearing it could be as late as late summer. So we'll stay on it. At the Texas Capitol, I'm Ryan Chandler.
Ryan, thanks for your reporting. We appreciate it. And Paxton did release a written statement moments after the vote. He called the process illegal, unfounded, and unethical. Paxton wrote, quote, "What we witnessed today is not just about me. It is about the corrupt establishment's eagerness to overpower the millions of Texas voters who already made their voices heard when they overwhelmingly re-elected me." Paxton is referring to last November's election when he defeated Democrat Rochelle Garza by a double-digit percentage margin. And the Texas House Democratic Caucus released a statement on Paxton's impeachment. In that statement, Representative Trey Martinez Fisher says this vote is about the people of Texas and ensuring their elected officials are held accountable when they violate the people's trust. As we start looking toward the next steps of this impeachment process, we do want to give you a look inside the House chamber today as representatives discuss the vote for nearly 4 hours. Take a look. History in the Texas House. For the first time ever, lawmakers take on a resolution to impeach the state's Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, I call up the privileged resolution, H.R. 2377, impeaching Warren Kenneth Paxton.
House General Investigating Committee members laid out their arguments against AG Ken Paxton.
And either this is going to be the beginning of the end of his criminal reign, or God help us with the harms that will come to all Texans if he is allowed to stay the top cop on the take.
Paxton's defenders made their case to the chamber against impeachment.
Now, there may be a lot of evidence out there. There may be volumes of evidence that would justify impeachment, but we don't got it. We don't have it. It's not there.
So how did we get here? As we said before, an investigation started after Paxton proposed using state funds to settle a $3.3 million whistleblower lawsuit. That lawsuit was filed in 2020 by 4 former staffers who accused Paxton of corruption. They were fired from the Attorney General's office after claiming Paxton misused his office to help a campaign donor. Those accusations led to a federal investigation that is still in progress. Well, this historic moment in Texas brought some big crowds to the Capitol. KXAN's Mercedez Hernandez is outside the chamber where people were lined up to listen today. Mercedez, describe the reaction after the vote for impeachment was announced just about an hour ago.
Yes, Mike, now the tone of the kind of crowd coming out of the chamber was one, some of disbelief and some of relief. We'll get into that in just a little bit. Now, the long lines of people that were waiting to get into the gallery, if you can believe it or not, it's around the corner. So picture how many people can fill this room right here. They're all gone now that the House has voted to impeach. They were waiting for that historic vote. Now, folks say that they were waiting as long as 8 hours here at the Capitol for that vote. Some of the people in line were following the Attorney General's call to show up and stand in solidarity with him, many of them wearing stickers to show that support. For some, the vote comes as a relief. Others, though, say that this isn't over just yet.
I am ecstatic that justice was served, that it was shown that there was just cause to go to trial.
This is an attempt to steal the election of Ken Paxton away from him and a way to disenfranchise the people who voted for him. This is a coup, and it's not going to stand. It has energized the base like nothing I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Now, some of the folks that I saw, some of the political groups out here that I saw today included the Guadalupe County Republican Party and members of the Travis County Democratic Party. At the Capitol, Mercedez Hernandez, KXAN News.
Thanks, Mercedez. Former President Donald Trump took to his social media platform Truth Social earlier today to blast the Texas House's impeachment effort. He wrote, "The rhino Speaker of the House of Texas, Dade Phelan, who is barely a Republican at all and failed the test on voter integrity, wants to impeach one of the most hardworking and effective attorney generals in the United States." At the time, Trump also said that he would politically target Texas House Republicans who allowed the impeachment to go through. After the vote, he posted again on Truth Social, attacking Speaker Phelan, sharing that video of the Speaker slurring his words while presiding over the House floor last week.